We are absolutely honored and delighted to welcome the great man of God, Bishop Thomas Dexter Jakes. Preaching since his teens, ordained at the age of 22 and with his first established church at just 23, Bishop T.D. Jakes has gone on to become one of the world's most preeminent preachers, a powerhouse of religious thought and commentary with 45 book titles to his name. Alongside his wife of 39 years, Sarita Ann Jakes, T.D. Jakes has established a ministry that crosses the divides of race, culture, and denomination, impacting lives across nations. Yeah. Many of us will remember, maybe not the really young ones, many of us will remember the life-altering message of Woman Thou Art Loosed that catapulted the bishop to fame in 1992, healing women the world over and setting them free from the depths of trauma and despair. From there, the bishop's tele-evangelism career was launched with his show on TBN, after which came weekly broadcasts on BET. In that same year came the initiation of the first Manpower Conference, aimed at the motivating of men in their relational and community roles. Ever onwards and upwards, Bishop then moved with his family and some of his church employees to Dallas, where they established the Potter's House. Starting with a congregation of just 2,000, the membership has grown to more than 30,000. Wow. Time will simply not permit me to speak of the founding of the Metroplex Economic Development Corporation or the Clay Academy, or of his place in the Encyclopedia of African American Christian Heritage, or his position in the who's who among African Americans. We simply have run out of the capacity to list the range of films that he has written, produced, and acted in, or his Grammy award-winning gospel music. Bishop Jakes, we salute and honor you for the mark that you have made and continue to make in this earth for the kingdom. And we're excited to glean from your wisdom tonight. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. And I'm honored to be interviewed by such a prestigious choir and director who has reached international acclaim for your contributions, not only on the prestigious platform of the Royal Wedding, but also through all of your crusades and conferences and workshops around the world, ranging from Japan to London to Africa. I'm well aware of the impact that you've made upon the world, and I'm excited and delighted to say early in our conversation that we are so thrilled that you're going to be performing for us on the first Sunday of December. So I'm excited about that as well. And so it's only natural that we would come together in this forum and have this conversation. And we look forward to you singing for our Sunday morning service. So we're just thrilled also, excited.
Thank you. Bless you for that. Thank you. We're so, can I say stoked? We're stoked. I think we can say that. So, Bishop, we have some questions that we hope that you don't mind us asking. And we put them in categories. So we thought that we might start a little light, and we'll start with some icebreakers, some just light-hearted stuff. Is that okay with you?
It's fine. I'm good.
I think it's going to be Kalisha.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Kalisha here. An absolute honor to be in your presence today. So my question, in my opinion, is the most important that we are going to ask. And it is that I have personally been following your Instagram account with your baking skills. Who knew that the bishop was a baker? I want to know if there are any other hidden talents that you have you'd like to share with us.
Well, first of all, cooking in general is therapy to me. Yeah. And I had 5 children, and I'm used to having a lot of people, all their friends and family over the house. And though they're all grown now, I still cook like they're not grown. And they come over and visit us. And whenever they come over to visit, I try to break out the pots and pans and cooking. And then I put quite a bit of my baking on television. People were surprised. I should have made something to present to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Kimmy?
Hi, Bishop. Kemi here. So wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
So out of all of the amazing books that you have written, what would you say is your favorite? What's your favorite book?
Instinct. My latest book, When Women Pray, has just been released, and I think it's very appropriate for the times that we're living in right now and the challenges that we're facing, and just challenging women to become women of prayer by talking about 10 women in the Bible who changed the world on their knees. But my all-time favorite book for me is Instinct, and it was inspired while I was in South Africa. Then I was on a safari in South Africa, and in the midst of the safari, with lions and eagles and giraffes and rhinoceros all around, I had this epiphany, this moment that inspired the writing of the book Instinct, and it talks about the difference between intellect, and instinct, and which one do you need in order to walk out your destiny, and which one leads the way. So I think it epitomized who I am as a person, and I think I love it because it speaks to that inner voice that you have to yield to in order to find out which way to go when life is crazy, and it's called Instinct. So it's my favorite, but I've written a lot of them. You mentioned Woman Are Loose earlier. Emotions I wrote when I was about 40, talking about men and their emotions and what goes on with men. And it was written to men and the women who love them. So I've done a lot of books, and I really, really enjoy them. I'm actually working on one now that I haven't told anybody about.
Oh,
Yeah.
Exclusive or
You're all ears, aren't you?
yeah.
I'm working on a book called Don't Drop the Mic. And it's written about public speaking and preaching and techniques and styles. And I wrote it with the evolution, the passing of the torch to the next generation. And don't drop the mic is saying, the mic is in your hands now. Your voice is the very critical voice of our times. The art of speaking, the art of thinking, the art of reflection, how important it is. Every major revolution has been accomplished in the world because somebody picked up the mic and said something. And as we pass the mic to your generation, I'm saying don't drop the mic. And if we pass the mic to all orators, speakers, intellectuals, preachers, salesmen, artists, or just trying to communicate in your own family, I talk about the power of speech and how important it is to be articulate and to be able to take the abstract feelings of your emotions and experiences and translate them through the vehicle of language and linguistics to better inform and impart wisdom to people so that you do not die with your revelations and your feelings trapped in your heart and not ventilated through the oracle of your mouth.
When did you say that one was coming out?
Probably the middle of 2021 or so, and it's called Don't Drop the Mic, and it is so relevant because in the technological age that we live in now, we have reduced conversation down to tweets, but the gift of speech is important to be preserved. And I don't want us to replace emojis and slogans and brief phrases with the ability to coordinate paragraphs and short stories and drama and spoken word and lyrics for songs and communicating with each other in our families, our hearts. Communication is so important. So I'm excited about it, and it'll come out in 2021. And I honestly, you are the first persons that I have talked to about it.
Wow.
So, you heard it first right here.
I think I need a signed copy of that.
Yeah.
I think I need a copy. So I just need to clarify, that's not just for young people, it's for older people as well.
No, because at all ages, we should constantly enhance our ability to orate and to communicate and to articulate ourselves. And it is not just about the vehicle of a vocabulary that is opulent enough to accommodate your thoughts, but it is also about verbalizing feelings, whatever they are, legitimizing them with speech, because when we let it out of the heart flows the issues of life. And the only way for it to get out of the heart is through the speech. Yeah. And speech is very, very, very important.
Yeah.
If you think about it, every song was a word before it was a song.
Yeah.
And the ability to translate those lyrics into meaningful expressions is so translucent that it's for all people. But I speak a lot in the book about African heritage and storytelling and how the storytelling informs the way in which we communicate. Before we were writing and doing books, we were sitting by the fire, telling stories and passing down traditions. And because we process a bit differently, we articulate a little bit differently our experiences from generation to generation. And I am saying specifically that our heritage informs the way in which we describe the abstract experiences of life. We have survived because we have not dropped the mic. And I'm saying to all people, keep talking, even if we don't agree, even if they don't understand, even if they resist, even if there are trolls out there and critics out there and people who try to shut you down. Don't let anybody make you drop your mic.
This is absolute food for the soul.
Honestly, fantastic.
Yeah. Robin?
Hi, James. My name's Robin. It's been just amazing growing up and seeing you just impact that generation after generation. But my question to you is, what are some of the 3 most important decisions you've had to make since coming to faith?
The 3 most important decisions I had to make coming to faith. The first one, beyond accepting Christ, would be choosing a spouse. I don't think that there's anything more important than the choice. And you're making a choice at an age of vulnerability because you're choosing somebody at 20 that has to fit you at 60. Yeah. And most people don't think about it like that. So that's a very important choice. You're choosing someone that's going to be hopefully with you to the grave. And when you say I do, the person you said I do to is not the person that you die with. We're always evolving. And so you're choosing somebody that requires spiritual discernment to know, do they have the core values and the depths of instinct to be compatible with who you are, both functionally and dysfunctionally. So I think that's one of the great decisions of life. The other decision is the person who makes decisions for you, your parents. You end up making decisions for them. And I have had the responsibility, the privilege of making decisions for both my father and my mother when they were too vulnerable to make decisions for themselves. And so I think that was a really, really big decision to make. Their health, their well-being, their final services, all of that becomes a responsibility. You switch roles at some point. Yeah. They become the child and you become the parent. Yeah. And I realized at that point that I thought I was raising my children to think for themselves. But by the time I got ready to bury my mother, I realized that I was raising my children to also be able to think for me. And that changed the way in which I raised my children, because I wanted them to be able to make decisions in case I could not.
Wow.
And most of us don't think about it that way, but that is vitally important, vitally important. My mother counted on me to make decisions when she could not. And so when she stopped talking, I had to talk in her stead with her wisdom and with her intellect and with her choices and her values. And so that was the second thing. I think the third thing was to come to Dallas, to have the courage to go someplace that I was not known and to go someplace where I didn't know anything about and to start over again was the biggest thing. And though everybody doesn't come to a city to start a church, every human being has to have the courage to start over again and to step into the unfamiliar and the uncertainty and to wade through the muck and the mire of the what ifs. What if I don't make it? What if it goes wrong? What if it goes bad? You have to swim through all of that to get to the solid place of I made it. And so those were three big decisions that shaped my understanding of faith and the importance of making great decisions and what all information you need to have in order to make. You cannot make great decisions with poor information. So it's about arming yourself with the kind of information that gives you a panoramic view of all of the options, and then to choose the right one is both a result of prayer and contemplation, not contemplation without prayer and not prayer without contemplation. You have to be intelligent and spiritual because you're making a decision from both aspects of who you are as an individual.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you.
I
feel like I'm sitting at the feet of Gamaliel. That's how I feel right now. Bishop, can I just introduce you to our fifth member? This is Ulrich Coker.
Hey, Ulrich. God bless you. Welcome.
So,
you told me you were stuck in traffic.
Yes.
I know what it's like to be in the traffic of London.
so you know about it.
Yes.
So we wanted to move on to our next section, and I think this is more about leadership now, if that's okay. So Tyler's going to start us off.
Hi, Bishop. Tyrone here. You spoke a moment ago just about the importance of articulating your emotions. And the question I want to ask you is, how do you maintain your faith in emotional turmoil?
That is not a hard thing to do, because I think that one of the great mistakes that we make today is that we let our emotions drive our choices. And I guarantee you that if you allow your emotions to make your decisions, you will end up with a wreck. Your emotions cannot be trusted. They're not stable. They change from moment to moment. You can't rely on them. You want to make decisions based on the facts, not the feelings, because the feelings change, but the facts remain the same. And when it comes to faith in the middle of all of the turmoil, the only way to deal with the atrocities of life and the vicissitudes of being a human being and all of the conflicts of having a human experience, being a spiritual being, you have to have faith to hold on to, faith in God, not in self, because all of your friends will disappoint you, all of your family will disappoint you, and just when you get mad at everybody, you will disappoint yourself. And suddenly you will recognize that you have to have faith in God, because he is the only consistent. When all around begins to shake, he is the solid, everlasting, eternal, immutable, unchanging God that is always the same. And he doesn't just love you when you're right. He loves you when you're wrong, and he loves you when you've fallen, and he loves you when you're in the belly of the fish, and he loves you when you're locked up in prison, and he loves you when you're backslidden, and he loves you when you're afraid, and he loves you in the storm when you're wondering, does he care? Carest thou not that we perish? His love is the only thing on the boat that wasn't rocking. He loves you eternally. And we don't understand that, because we have a tendency to think religion when God was thinking relationship.
Yeah.
And so we mistake religion for relationship. And what Jesus died for was to give us relationship. He is unfamiliar with religion. If he came today into our churches, we would have to explain to him what an usher was. You know, you'd have to show him those are deacons, Jesus. You know, don't sit over there. That's the deacon's row. He's never seen a choir. He's never seen a praise team. So all of those are the accoutrements of man-made religious accoutrements. But the reality is Jesus died so that we might have a personal relationship with God, not a corporate relationship, as much as a personal relationship with God. And we're so busy trying to fit into the corporation of the church, the social environment of the church, the live up to the expectations of being a part of a fraternal order of spiritual believers, when in fact, Jesus didn't die for you to get along with me. Jesus died for you to get along with God.
Yeah.
And if you understand that, that changes everything, and it's completely liberating to the soul that I am not saddled with the responsibility of living up to your expectations. I'm only saddled with the responsibility of living up to God's expectations, and God only expects from me what he put in me. He does not expect from me what he put in you.
I need that one more time. Sorry, I don't know. I need that just one more time. That was too good.
Yeah. God does not expect from me anything that he did not put in me. When he gave out the talents, he did not expect the one with the 1 talent to have what the one with 5 talents had. He gives us different levels of talent. That's why you shouldn't compare yourself with anybody else. So God only asks for withdrawal where he has first made a deposit. You understand? And when you understand that is so liberating from having the additional weight of living up to everybody else's expectations who has made no deposit in who you are.
Wow.
They have made no deposit in who you are. And so you have to understand that the only one that you have to give an account to is the one whose name is on the account. And that is God himself. And you might not know this about me, but I started out in music. And I started out on the piano bench. And I hate to say I play the piano because by today's standards, you wouldn't call it music. But I thought I was going to be a choir director because I have a modicum of musical talent.
Yes.
I understand what a triad is. I understand what a minor chord is. I understand what augmented and diminished chords are. I understand what a jazz chord is and what a 13th is and so forth and so on. I understand music theoretically.
Yeah.
But my gift is not strong enough to propel me where I need to go. And you have to understand that just because you have a modicum of talent doesn't mean you ought to pursue that to its fullest. It may be an accessory, but it shouldn't be the main thing. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yes. We are hearing
Are we allowed to run?
I know I have this accent, so I probably am a little bit hard to understand for you, but you have to realize you have an accent to me too. So I lean in to understand you.
Thank you. Such nuggets of wisdom. Who's next? I think it's you, Ulrich.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So my question is, Bishop, what legacy do you intend to leave on this earth?
First of all, you. You are my legacy.
Wow.
Your generation is my legacy. Paul said that you are the proof of my ministry. You are living epistles read of men. He said, I have no need of commendations of men. The people who heard me are my legacy. That's first and foremost. My children are my legacy. Whatever I was able to breathe in them will outlive me and outlast me. The works I've done in the community and around the world are legacy. I'm at the point now that for me, it's not so much about delivering a sermon, I want the sermons to be made flesh in community development and transformative institutions and rehabilitation for people who've been incarcerated and housing for underserved communities and STEM programs and STEAM programs to close the digital divide between people of color and people that don't have color so that they are more competitive in the age to come. And to use your platform for something bigger than yourself is legacy to me. And so you will see me in the marketplace, and you will see me on the news channels, and you will see me in the business forums, and you will see me in Forbes and other places having discussions about where are we going in the world today, because I have a responsibility to take what was given to me and propel it until the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. So I made films and I did movies and I dealt with Hollywood so that the films would outlast me. I wrote books so that the books would outlast me. I negotiated the expungement of criminals' records so that they would have a chance at a job and a place to stay, and put them in 2-year programs. So 30,000 people have gone through our Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative. All of those programs are my legacy. And I started a foundation so that I could connect corporate leadership with community needs and create job development and create more diversity in the workplace. I want to see the word made flesh, not just preached, not just sung. I want to see it made flesh in changing lives. And all of that is my legacy. And I'm deeply involved while I have the strength and while I have the life and the presence of mind to leave something tangible behind, evidence that I was here, evidence that I mattered, evidence that you mattered, because you are the legacy, as I am the legacy of my ancestors. Yeah. So are you the legacy of my existence.
Wow. That's
amazing.
Thank you.
Can I just say thank you?
Just take a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I need one more. Bishop, can I just say thank you?
Yeah.
Thank you for having the strategic thought and foresight years before we were even born.
Yeah.
Right? We were even born.
Thank you.
Right, that wasn't check.
Wow.
And I have to say, you know, thousands of miles across the pond, we are still able to glean from your obedience and from your commitment and your discipline in order to leave this world in a better state in which you found it.
Yeah.
And so from us, I actually just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
And I know that you haven't even touched on the surface of the amount of influence, thereby the amount of legacy that you are leaving on this earth.
Yeah.
You may not even know yourself, but I just want to say for people who are benefactors of that, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. You are most welcome. I love the brightness of your eyes and the brilliance of your smile. My mother told me something I will share with you. My mother said the only thing that got old on me was my body. So inside, I am as young as you. And outside, I am as old as me. And I live between the two polarities. Okay, because I think like a millennial, but I have the experiences of a boomer, and it makes me bilingual. Because I know what it is as a young person to live with the question mark of how far will I go?
Yeah.
And what will I be? And do I have enough of what it takes to make it? And I see that burning in your eyes. And I also understand that this gray hair is a testimony to you that you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can enter in the Olympics on crutches. You can swim even if you leaped off into the pool from a wheelchair. You don't have to be whole and perfect to be effective. You can overcome your obstacles and your limitations and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. Wow.
I think we'll just go to Robert now since we're in this.
Yes.
We're actually, I jumped a couple of questions. So we're actually in the youth and legacy section. And so what you're speaking is absolute music to my ears. It really is. But Robert's got a question for you that might be related off the back of what you've just said.
What advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
Oh, that's a good one. The first advice I would give my 16-year-old self is to try not to do anything so stupid that you make it hard on your 60-year-old self. Yeah, I preached a message. If you go on my YouTube channel, you can find it. And the message is called, I Didn't Know I Was Me. And so at 16, I didn't know I was me. And so you do things and you make choices and you make decisions, not taking full advantage of the brightness of your mind because you didn't know that the world would take you so seriously. I had no idea. I'm still amazed that I'm sitting in Dallas, Texas, and I'm talking to you in London, and that we have a global impact. I didn't know that was going to happen to me. So if I could go back and be 16 again, I would study harder. I would take myself more seriously.
That's good.
I would expose myself to different cultures and languages and arts and music and opera and dance and everything that the world has to offer.
Yeah.
You know, I would not have thought about my neighborhood. I would have thought about the global community. I would have listened at politics. I would have wrestled with science. I would have looked at global warming. I would have looked at everything from a different lens, because when you're 16, you don't know you're important.
Yeah, that's true.
But if you keep living, you're going to find out that you might be the they that you have been talking about, and the we that we have been waiting on might be you. So arm yourself with everything, things that you don't think will ever be important to you. Learn it anyway, because it just might be a tool that you can use in the next 10, 20, 30 years that is fitted for you to go into a predestined place that God has for you that you never foresaw. So I would have told my 16-year-old self, you're more than you think you are. You can be more than you plan to be. You will outrun your father and your grandfather and your great-grandfather. You will go further than your mother threw you. You will go further than the neighborhood you came from.
Yeah.
Your feet were made to run. So stretch beyond the limitations. Go to places Black folks don't go.
Yeah.
Read things that Black folks don't read. Go beyond the breaches of where they have put fences.
Yes.
And be all that you can be, because nothing is impossible to him that believes. You might grow up and be in the Kingdom Choir. Yeah, go all over the world and sing for royalty.
Yeah.
You might sing for royalty. Who knows? You started out singing in a shower, and you might end up singing for royalty.
Yeah.
For princes and kings around the world.
Yeah.
With orchestras adorning your songs. Take the limits off what you're planning on. You're thinking too small.
Yeah.
Tomorrow will unlock the turmoil of today. The reason your life was so crazy was it was designed so that you wouldn't stay in small when bigger was calling you.
Wow.
So don't bemoan what went wrong, but reach for what will go right.
Yes. Yes. Amen. I'm taking that. I'm taking it.
So Bishop, as one who is only slightly older, I am a firm believer in our ceiling being the floor for our children and the generations after. What are some of the greatest lessons you have learned, and how are you passing that down to your children and your grandchildren?
I have learned to build relationships with people who don't look like me and who don't think like me. I have learned to break the rules. I have learned to reach beyond the breach. I taught my children not to be narrow in their thinkings. I taught my daughters to be strong enough to make it without a man, so that if you have one, you have him because you want him and not because you need him. Because need makes you make crazy decisions.
Yes.
You know, I think every man ought to be able to take care of himself, so that you have a woman because you want one, not because you need one. Mm-hmm. You see, desperation makes dumb decisions. And I think it's important to understand that you can't afford to be desperate because you are enough.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
You are enough. And I think in building relationships beyond breaches, you equip yourself with a panoramic view of thought, because most people don't think from a panoramic perspective. They think from the narrow lens of their perspective and their background. And you'll never be a great writer if you only think from the perspective of one character that you're writing about. You'll never be a great preacher if you only tell the story from the perspective of blind Bartimaeus and you don't tell it from the perspective of the disciples who are going with Jesus on his final field trip. You have to be able to look at everybody's story and see everybody's perspective. Even if you don't agree with what they did, you must understand the why and not the what. Because if you understand the why, you can live with the what. Mm-hmm. You see, those kinds of things I think are very, very important to contemplate and to pass on and to share, so that you're a global thinker, so that you can be happy in a room by yourself because you have enough thoughts to entertain yourself by yourself, and so that you build enough connections so that the connections you build, relationships, will accommodate your dream. Every dream is only built on the relationships that are established to support the weight of it. So relationships are your greatest resource. And the only reason we are talking is because of relationship. Yeah. You knew somebody who knew somebody who knew me, who connected us together. Those relationships must be protected, because you cannot reach where you have no relationships.
Yes. Very true. Yeah. Wow.
I'm going to stop you looking at me like I'm going to preach.
We're just sitting here, just the weight of what you're saying. Yeah. It's like you have 1,000 lines of revelation in 4 words. So we're just trying to process what you're saying. And as you speak, it reminds me of something that I heard from a great teacher, and it's really followed me. And it's life works by connection. It works by connection. Absolutely. We are wired for connection. We don't realize it, but we're wired to do life with one another.
Right.
And that's whether it's in the church, definitely in the family, in the workplace. You know, I remember I used to work at a place where they would go down to the pub, but I was a good Christian, so I didn't drink. And I did not go to the pub. Meanwhile, they are establishing relationship and making deals in the pub where I wasn't at.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Most church people don't think like that. Yeah. And they don't understand that for where you're going, you need to build the kinds of diverse relationships that Jesus stayed at Zacchaeus' house, and they couldn't understand why somebody as righteous as Jesus would stay with a tax collector who was basically a swindler working at the dictates of the Roman Empire. But Jesus integrated his thought with streams of consciousness from all types of levels, and he reached all types of people. The Samaritan woman, the woman who anointed his feet, they said if he knew she was a sinner, he wouldn't let him touch her. He knew everything about that woman. So the people who gathered around the tomb of Jesus or the cross are extremely diverse because he is the God of all, or he's not God at all.
Yeah.
And so likewise, if you're going to be like Jesus, don't be narrow. He sat with the wine bibbers, but he also sat with the scholars and the teachers and the scientists, and he confounded the wise at 12.
Yeah.
So make your world bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Make your world bigger. Make your world bigger. Don't be so busy trying to be religious that you shut yourself down to one little narrow perspective of thought. You can be true to your convictions and vast in your associations. You can still be Christian. You can still hold to your values. You can hold to your core, but you can sit down at the table with the atheist and the agnostic and the Muslim and the Jew, and you can talk to everybody because all of them will teach you something you need to know. And you cannot influence people you do not talk to.
Yes.
Yes.
You can't change people you don't speak to. Get out of the little bubble of only hanging around people who can predict what you're going to say. And get into the ocean. Swim in the ocean. You know, when you go to a resort, you can either swim in the pool or swim in the ocean.
Yeah.
Most people stay in the pool. Get in the ocean. When you get into the ocean, you're in there with all manner of fish. You never see Jesus in a pool. You never see Jesus in a pool. He's an ocean thinker. He's an ocean lover. He's vast in his being, you know, and he can ascend and he can descend. He can be abased and abound. Paul said, I've learned whatever state I'm in to be content. He was in the prison with inmates, but he was also set at the feet of Gamaliel. He was respected by the greatest thinkers of his era.
Yeah.
See, think about how much more God could use Paul than he could Peter, who was an unlearned man and knew how to fish and knew how to ride a boat and knew how to run a boat, but he wasn't necessarily a great thinker and didn't speak in enough languages to go to Rome and to go to Greece and to convert in Ephesus and to be able to go to Thessalonica and to be able to be vast enough, to be used enough, to be universal. That's what I'm talking about. So sing in English and sing in Spanish and sing in Russian and it's so that you can go anywhere.
Yes.
And do anything. And abase and abound, and do gospel, and do opera, and do classical, and do formal, and do all of it with whatever he gave you. Use it to its fullest capacity. That way, God can use you anywhere.
Yes. You know, as you speak, there is so much that's coming to my mind. I've gone off script a little bit. It speaks to me of what happened to what they call over here the Windrush generation. Have you heard that phrase before? The wind. Well, it's referring to the West Indians who were invited to England in the 1950s, 1960s. My mum, who is 83, would be of the Windrush generation. And when they came here, of course, when they were back home, a lot of them were members of the Church of England. And they came here thinking that they could visit the churches. And the vicars would greet them at the door on a Sunday and say, thank you for coming, but don't come back. And so what then happened, they went and formed their own churches with people who looked like them and understood them. And I feel that what that has done to us is, you know, kept us narrow. And also, I feel a lot of what we have suffered down the ages has planted seed of fear. A lot of what you are talking about doesn't happen because of fear. We don't do those things. We don't step out. I recognize it in myself. I recognize it in my community. We don't step out because of fear. But I'm also reminded of when you're saying do it all. When we were singing for the royal wedding, I wanted to do gospel. I wanted to do straight up gospel with all the bells and whistles. But they asked for Stand By Me, and they asked for it in a particular way. And they asked for it in a way that I was completely embarrassed about because it wasn't gospel. And so I thought it would be, I thought we would be the laughing stock of the gospel community because, of course, that's who I wanted to really impress. But God taught me a lesson, and it was that you have to be all things to all men, to reach all men. And so that is why that song, I believe, Stand By Me, has touched the world. We will never get away from that song for as long as we live, but I will remember the lesson that God taught me because
You are exactly right. And what you have to do when you get broad and you're dealing with narrow people, you have to introduce it with a scripture. and say, wilt thou leave me also? For in thy hand, no, whither shall I go? For in thy hands are the words of eternal life. And then hit the piano and start saying, Stand By Me. I want to address what you said about the migration of the Caribbean, out of the Caribbeans to the UK. I want to address that and the residual effect of being somewhat insulated and narrowing your perspective. One of the things that technology has provided is that the doors that were closed to you then are now leveled now. Yeah. There's a book called The World is Flat. Technology has put us in a position that there are no restrictions on who will watch this video. They will watch it in Iraq. They will watch it in Afghanistan. They will watch it in Russia. They will watch it in Japan. There will be soldiers on the military base who will watch it. It's not just the church that's going to watch it. The whole world is going to watch it. When you sang, and all of those 14 millions of people that logged in to hear you sing, they were from every stripe of the world. The walls are gone. Yeah. The limitations are off. God has never wanted to be restricted behind man-made walls. And technology has made it possible that nobody can shut the door on hearing your gift ever again. So when you do whatever it is you do, understand that your audience is beyond your imagination. That you will go into Sweden and you will go all over the world, though you never left the house. That when you sing for us on Sunday, you're not just singing for the Potter's House. Some of the people who are following us, out of the millions of people who engage with us by social media, send me messages in languages I can't even read. They're not all Christians. They're not all from Christian countries, but they can access us now. And so think broadly like Paul and not narrow like Peter, because Peter didn't want to carry the gospel to the Gentiles because he was so narrow. But God could use Paul because he was so broad. And the broader you are in your thinking, the more God can use you. The only caution I would give you is the caution I gave my son when I dropped him off at college. And he was getting out of the car. And I rolled down the window and I said to him, don't forget who you are. You didn't come here to find out who you are. You found out who you were in my house. Learn all that they have to offer you, but never forget who you are. So walk in there on their stage and let them know that you can do what they can do, and that you can do opera, and that you can do classical, and then introduce them to gospel. Because the gateway to getting into the room might give you a platform to present your faith in a way that could not otherwise be shared or presented. After all, you are the kingdom choir. You're not the church choir. The The kingdom is bigger than the church.
Absolutely.
The word kingdom is the king's domain.
Yes.
So everything is up under his auspices. The earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof the world, and they that dwell therein. And you can still be true to your gospel roots and your gospel core and your gospel message, but be diverse enough. Everybody major that God used in the Bible, they were extremely diverse. Like Moses, he was a Hebrew by blood. He was educated as an Egyptian. He was trained by the Midianites. He was global enough in his perspective that God could use him to lead millions of people because of his environment. He didn't have a slave mentality.
Yeah.
There are no walls. He had a slave's blood, but he didn't have a slave's experience.
Right.
I'm sorry.
We actually could talk for hours, and we would be very happy. Could you bear just a few more questions?
Sure.
I think it's yourself.
I might need a second again. What a lot of the things that you've been talking about has been about generation, and the generations to come and what you do there. We are required that are very rooted in youth and how we can impact and influence the youth. Many of us work with young people also. So I ask you this question. Often we hear, it's biblical that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So what would you say to our future generation about navigating a world, a new world, a different world, where faith often can seem to compete with ever-changing entertainment, social media, politics, all manner of different things? How would you tell them to navigate that with their faith?
Revelation says the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. Everything you name, entertainment, music, social transitions, all of it becomes something to be acquired, something to be mastered. That's why I went into film, because that way images escaped the Christian networks. I'm tired of preaching where the amens come easy. And, I want to go out there where the fish are, out into the deep, and interact with people from every walk of life. And I would say to the young people, your faith is your root. And if it is real, it is like your DNA. You can never change it. You can never change it. If you make your bed in hell, if you take the wings of the morning and ascend to the uttermost parts of the earth, if your faith is real, you can never escape it. You can be like Jeremiah and say, I'm not going to preach anymore, but the word will be like fire shut up in your bones. You can be like Jonah and end up in the bottom of the mountains with seaweed wrapped around your neck, but the whale will have to cough you up because it's still in you. If it's really in you, it will never come out.
Yeah.
It will never come out, because Jesus will come out through hip hop, and Jesus will come out through dance, and Jesus will come out through whatever you do, because it is down inside of you. And the challenge of your generation is not to be so myopic in your perspective that you're only thinking about your generation. Your vast horizons includes my generation.
Yeah.
My vast horizons includes yours. So I don't need a leap of faith to talk to somebody my age. I need a leap of faith to talk to somebody younger than me. You need a leap of faith that's relevant to your generation, but still revelatory to mine.
Yeah.
Because in a moment we will be gone. And you will hate the fact that we left without hearing our secrets.
Yes, so true.
Do not let us get away without touching us and knowing us, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of us, because it will help you understand you. Oh, what I would give to sit down and have a conversation with Nelson Mandela right now.
Yeah.
Oh, what I would give to sit down and have a cup of coffee with Dr. King right now. What I would give right now to have an opportunity to talk to the people that shaped our world and shaped our society, and you know, to sit down and have lunch with Margaret Thatcher, to sit down with Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
What would Winston Churchill think of what is going on in the world right now? See, what I want you to think is not just about who you are and where you are. That's easy. That's natural. That's normal. That's relative. You got that. I want you to cast your nets out further. Our generation is the oldest living generation. We're living longer than any of our predecessors have ever lived. Find out why. Because you will be us tomorrow.
Yeah.
Youth will pass by. It will pass by in a moment. How did we survive? We are the last generation to be married 40 and 50 years. Your generation will be married 5 times in 32. How did we pull that off?
Yeah.
How did we make that work? We built our houses. We built our churches. We built our ministry from the ground up. Yeah. Your generation tends to think of, hand me the keys.
Yeah.
If the keys don't get handed to you, wouldn't it help to be able to build your own?
Yeah.
So don't let the builders die with all their nails and hammers and leave you in an empty world waiting on something to happen that will never happen. So that's what I'm saying to you, to be, and to the white folks, talk to black folks. To the black folks, talk to white folks. To the conservative folk, sit down with some liberal folks. To the liberal folks, sit down with some conservative folks. Don't just let the news tell you who we are. Let's get together and start talking to each other.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, our civilization will not survive.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me to something. I want to jump in and ask you a question.
Yeah, please do.
I can't wait to ask you this question. Yeah. What is it like to be black in England?
Oh, what a question.
You didn't see that.
Well, first of all, we're here. I think that that's one of the things, is recognizing that there is a prominent black presence in England. Our history is very different, but nonetheless, it's still very prominent. You will find us more in the cities and the big areas than you will maybe in some of the smaller villages and towns around. But the truth of the matter is, and I'm assuming you're asking the question from that race perspective, but in essence, the racism that killed George Floyd was built in England. So we have a lot of historical significance with race relations. We have some of our very own unique challenges, but there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
A lot of similarities. There are similarities in the sense of, are Black people overrepresented or incarcerated on or disproportionate numbers, like the United States? Yes. Do we receive worse healthcare? Yes. Education? Yes. Housing? Yes. So those systematic, structural, that allows our institutional racism to take place are very much still there. And
what I would say is that the way it operates is quite different.
Yeah.
So it's yes, it's much more subtle. It's much more, the microaggressions.
Absolutely.
I would say that that's how it operates, really, rather than the very obvious, very flagrant racism that we see on social media and on the news. So it's not that it doesn't happen. We have had Black people murdered over here for being Black, but we don't see the incidences, the amount of incidences that you might see. And it might be just because America's bigger, I don't know. It could be. But so the way they operate is very much It's insidious.
Yeah.
It's insidious. Yeah.
When you look at the struggles that we're having in this country and the struggles that you're having in your country, one of the things that fascinates me, that Dr. King, Nelson Mandela were my parents' generation. They were much older than me. They were old enough to be my parents, and my mother went to school with Coretta. So. Yeah, she went to high school together. They sang in the choir together. So they're the previous generation, okay? Yeah. So we were millennials to them, okay? But Nelson Mandela knew Dr. King. They interacted with each other. The apartheid very much connected with the civil rights movement. Yeah. We must work harder throughout the diaspora, the African diaspora, to connect with each other and not to be so busy trying to connect outside of our hue that we don't connect within our own shared historicity. Because we have a shared historicity. The details are different, but the complexities are the same.
Yeah.
We eat similar foods. Mm-hmm. We laugh at similar things.
Yeah.
You know, we dance the same way. Yeah. We have the same swag and the same flow.
Yeah.
From Nigeria to Ghana to London to Jamaica to Bahamas to America to Canada. We are similar.
Yeah.
We must not be so busy trying to connect outside of us that we don't also connect within us.
Yeah.
We have the same hair.
Yeah.
You know, we have the same sweat.
Yeah.
Why do we allow outside people to make our hair care products?
Come on. Here we go.
Why do we have people, you don't want me to start. Why do we have people who look nothing like us profiting off of us when we don't interact with ourselves?
Yeah.
If we would be more, for instance, like the Jews, they interact with each other.
Yeah.
There are different sects, there are different types of Jews on different parts of the world throughout the diaspora, but there's a fidelity between them and Israel. There's an interconnectivity. We must close the breach between us. And we have the opportunity because you don't have to fly here. You can Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, we can connect in a way we could never connect before.
Yeah.
Your choir and our choir could do a recording and never leave our countries.
Yeah.
We have gifts that no other generation has ever had before. And I want to inspire you to think in such a way that you could sing a line in English and then sing it in Swahili.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that your producer could come from South Africa.
Yes.
And that your distribution could come from Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And this interconnectivity between us, not just because we have the same skin, but because we have similar history and ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
Don't throw that all away. Don't throw that all away. If you eat oxtail, I eat oxtail. It wouldn't be that difference between the way your grandmama made hers and the way my grandmama made hers, and the way the Africans make theirs and the Nigerians and whatever make theirs. We are kin, not just tribes.
Yeah.
We are kin. And Israel survived because they, both in the Bible and in the contemporary society, because they never fully lost sight of their kinship. And so that's something to think about as you go forward to reach your generation, touch your generation, bring the gospel to them in their language, move like only you can move and do like only you can do and enjoy your youth.
Yeah.
But bring your grandmama into it and your mama, because you will be her tomorrow.
Yeah.
And live like a young man, but plan like an old one. because there's a 70-year-old person down inside of you depending on you to make the kinds of decisions that will make that old lady safe.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it in your youth, you won't eat it in your old age. So it's not about blinging, and it's not about diamond crosses and Rolls Royces. It's about a strategy for a lifelong experience with excellence.
Yeah.
Am I saying anything?
So much.
So much.
You're saying so much. So, you know, we have to come to an end very soon, don't we?
Yeah.
Is that we have. Oh, you want to ask it?
No, I'm saying it.
Oh, okay. We have dined out on very rich fare tonight. But we do want to hear if you have any more questions, because we have to finish very soon. Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, we got to wrap it up. Let me see.
Yeah, but we do. If you have anything else that you want to ask us,
I want to know, how has the coronavirus affected you over there? And when I say you, I don't just mean Black people. I mean the British in general. And I'm wondering what you are doing to keep your mental health well in the middle of COVID.
That was me this time. Hey, Bishop. So I think COVID, a lot of people said that COVID-19 was a great leveler. So it meant that everybody was on the same level. Unfortunately, that actually wasn't the case. I think COVID showed us just how many inequalities that we actually have in this country, especially with Black people. And I think it will be the same in America as well. But Black and minority groups in the UK suffered terribly as a result of COVID. And I think it was quite early on, I think maybe around March. And I remember every other day hearing that somebody else in the community had died. And you kind of start to think, wow, this seems to be affecting the Black community disproportionately. So that was probably the first thing that started to really come through. And so the government started to do a lot of reports and just really trying to find out some of the reasons why. I think economically, people living in deprived areas. So although we have the NHS, which we don't have to pay for, there's a lot of inequalities, even within having such an incredible system. You found a lot of Black and minority groups, they're on the front line. They're the ones that are driving buses, they're the key workers, they're working in the National Health Service. And as a result, in the very early stages, they were being impacted greatly. You can't say, I'm going to work from home. They're the cleaners, they're the ones that have to do and transport, the buses and the trains. So, it's massively impacted Black and minority groups in this country. But I think there's also some positives. I think as a result of COVID and even the stuff that was happening in America with George Floyd, I think Black people are trying to really come together. So there's the Black economy. It's like a group where loads of people that have got businesses, loads of Black people that have got businesses are now accessing our wealth. So if you need somebody to make a t-shirt, or if you want some good food, or if you want some hair products actually, or you want a web designer, then you've got a collective of Black people, I think it's called Black Owned Economy, who are working together to really try and invest in one another. So although we've been massively impacted, at the same time, I think there's been some positives as well. But yeah, the UK, like the US, it's been a really difficult time. People are very fearful. They're wearing their masks in the shops.
And in their own cars.
And in their cars. You know, we haven't been able to communicate and touch people as we would want to. The news is often very distressing because you're hearing about death every single day. And there's lots of fighting. A lot of people don't feel that the government have done everything that they could to really, I don't know, to help and protect the British people, no matter what colour you are. And people aren't particularly happy with the government at the moment. Kind of fluctuates. And I'm sure it's the same in the US. So, but we're here, we're standing strong, trying to do what we can, love on one another and
Stay connected.
stay connected. Yeah.
So we haven't been able to have rehearsals, but what we have done, particularly at the beginning, was we would still meet on Zoom just to see each other's faces, to check up, see how we were doing. We were able to make some virtual videos for various events, and that kept us connected to one another, you know. But also we wanted to do things for other people. So we have things like Motivational Monday on our social media, and we have Worship Wednesday, just to give hope to people. We released a single that was in support of those who are suffering from domestic violence. We wanted to, you know, do something for people who were locked down and locked in with their abusers, you know? So we've also, and that has helped us, that's given us purpose, you know, staying in connection with one another, but also giving things away to people who would otherwise have anything or any hope.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. And I hope that people watching this video will invest in those Black businesses, because there are, in America, white corporations and CEO leaders who want to help and are trying to find a way to help. And they are allocating hundreds of millions of dollars to invest into Black businesses. And while it's great that you're investing in each other, if you're a citizen of Great Britain, you're everybody's problem, and nobody is free until everybody's free. And I hope that some CEO will listen at this video and be inspired to invest into those businesses and to invest in what the Kingdom Choir is doing and to invest into their outreach and thereby be a responsible citizen of humanity in uplifting any people of any type that's oppressed, makes us all float higher and go further. We're working on that in America. We're doing the same things you're doing. We're having conversations. We're amassing our resources. We're getting out to vote like never before. We're doing things to make things better like never before. But also, we are not doing it with excluding our white brothers and sisters. There are many that are coming in and saying, I care about that. Your lives do matter. I want to do something to help. How can we make a difference? And we're having conversations interracially and interculturally to see how we can solve this problem because the virus is hitting without discrimination. Right. And unemployment has now reached the point that it's gone beyond minorities. It's hitting, the airlines are shutting down and different things are shutting down. And a lot of people are hurting who have never been hurting before. And there is a discovery of vulnerability amongst our white brothers and sisters that's bringing about a greater camaraderie. And so I want to take this opportunity to make an appeal to anybody listening to invest in those businesses. You want to do something to help those communities, invest in those businesses. It doesn't always have to be dollars. Volunteer to do the bookkeeping for them. Volunteer to do the accounting for them. Come in and teach classes on management. Give them computers and technology. Loan them one of your managers one day out of the week. It doesn't have to be pounds. It can be in-kind services, and you will have done good while doing well. You can still do well and still do good. So I hope you'll be inspired by listening at us today to become more socially engaged and still be profitable, because the people that you are raising up are also your customers.
Yeah.
They're in Harrods. I've been in there. They're in Harrods shopping. They're downtown. You know, they're in the shops. They're in the stores. I'm saying you'll get it back. Pressed down, shaken together, running over. And as for the crime, you must think this way. Sir, ma'am, you must think this way. I've never seen anybody mug somebody who had to be at work in the morning. So give them a job and give them a chance. And if you give them a job and give them a chance, you'll reduce crime. You'll make it safer for you. You won't have to hire somebody to guard your apartment. You'll be safer by doing better.
Yes.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, an absolute delight just to sit and listen to you talk. Thank you so much for pouring out of your very rich reserves. Honestly, I could have sat for another couple of hours. But God bless you. When this whole thing is over, we hope to visit you.
Oh, please. Please do.
We would love to come and visit and sit in your feet again and just listen and share.
We should make a date out of that. Our church would love you. They would absolutely love you. We love music. We have a huge, vast array of musicians and what have you. And they were texting me when I was talking to you. So whatever they're working on with you, that they want to play a video or something in our service, we want to be connected. Jesus prayed that we would be connected.
Yeah.
He prayed that we would be one. And this is the only way, this is the only chance we have to answer God's prayers. He's always answering ours. But he prayed that we might be one. And every time we connect, we are answering Jesus' prayer rather than him just answering ours.
Oh, incredible.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Love you.
Thank you.
Everybody. Bye-bye. I enjoyed it.